Alright guys, so if you're following along, you kind of have something roughly like this in place, and what we want to do now is select this surface, or not, sorry, not surface, but spline, come into my spline subcategory, and I'll go into my top view just so I can kind of see this stuff easier. And what I'm going to do is actually come down here, and there's a detach button, and you can do this in the edit poly modifier as well, detach certain parts off and work with it as you need to. So I'm going to detach these. The name of it is fine, so I'm just going to basically go through, and I want to get all of these detached, all of these pairs of trusses detached, because I can't obviously do the exact same thing for all of these trusses, because at each one of these points the curvature is different and is doing something different. So in order to kind of build these trusses, I have to go in and do it one at a time. But what's really nice about Max, and what I'm going to show you here, is once I kind of get this set up, it's a fairly automated process to just kind of copy over your parameters and have it kind of quickly populate your scene with your truss work. So once I have all of those kind of detached, I want to leave the last one there, turn this off, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all of these different shapes, because I need to come into my hierarchy, and right now all of these shapes are referencing the same pivot point, so I want to affect my pivot and center to the object. Once all of these are centered, you notice I have two of these. I actually want to slide these down in my Y, so that, just so that it's very close. I'm looking at my red X gizmo here. I want to make sure it's pretty much in line with that, and it should be that way for all of them because I copied them all down the same. So those should be roughly in the same place. So then I can turn off my effect pivot and hold Alt and use my scroll button to kind of come back into my orthographic view. And I'll just start with this truss here, and then I'll show you how to kind of quickly populate all these other trusses. So what I can actually do is I'll come into my modifier tab, and the first thing I want to do is apply a cross-section modifier. What this cross-section modifier is actually doing is it's coming and connecting all of my different points that I have on this editable spline. So if I come in here to the vertex, I can see all of my different points here that it's going to be connecting. And again, I can do show end result to kind of see, okay, those are the points that it's connecting across. And I didn't quite clean this one up enough. I want to get rid of those 2 points. I know it's not even spacing on that last one, it's a little bit further, but just for the sake of cleaning it up and so it's not too close to that end, I kind of want to do that just for the way I want it to look. So once I have that cross-section modifier on there, right now it's just spline. You remember we hit all of our geometry. So if I hold Shift G, that's bringing my geometry back, and I hit F3 for shade. So you can see that truss is kind of under that surface. So if I hit Shift G again, right now it's just line work. In order to get it to be a surface, I'm going to hit SU on my keyboard to drop me down to here on my modifier list, and I'm going to select surface. As soon as I do that, if I hit Shift G again, you can see it's now registering that as a surface. And just for kind of sanity's sake, I'm going to right click hit F4 to kind of see the edges here. Right click my surface that is here, and I'm just going to do hide selected just to get it out of the way, so it's not kind of in my way. Now that I have this geometry here kind of evenly divided up and spaced out based on my reference geometry, I'm going to then come in here and I want to put a subdivide on. But before I do the subdivide, actually, I'll do the subdivide here, just so you can see what's going on. I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, it's not really, it's kind of truss-like. I got these diagonal divisions here, but it's way too refined of a surface, and if I go and try and adjust this number, Max is going to freak out and just freeze up on me if I get too many subdivisions here. So that's because when I applied that surface, it's automatically taking your patch topology here and kind of refining that and trying to give it a smooth result. Again, we want to work very crudely and quickly, so we're just going to turn that down to 0. And what that's doing is that's just going to go point to point, and rather than dividing these things up on your surface parameter, it's going to keep it as a very basic crude surface. And you can kind of see that. I'll turn off my subdivide. I'll drop on and edit poly. If I come back down to surface and do show end result and turn this back up to 5, you can see that's how it's dividing it up. Now it doesn't really show you that on the surface thing because I didn't have an edit poly or subdivide on there, But when I do put those modifiers on there, it's going back to the saying, okay, well, the stepping is 5. So it's taking each one of these areas, these quad areas here, so each one of these 4 sides, and then it's dividing it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways there. So as soon as I turn that on, you can see this is a fairly dense geometry all of a sudden. Whereas if I turn this down to 0, you know, it stays simplified and perfectly normal. And then when I turn on my subdivide, you see I automatically get my truss members here that are kind of built into it. Now somebody was asking me, well, what if I want my truss members to all go in the same direction? You can see here based on the geometry where it's sticking out, all of a sudden it kind of switches on me. So what I could do if I really wanted to control it, I could go into my front view. But again, this method would take quite a while, and you know, all my splines are in the way, so I'll hold Shift S to kind of get rid of that. And I'll go into my editable poly here, and I'll go into my edge mode, and I'll come down. There is a quick slice here, or also up here in my graphite modeling tools. When I click on that, I can then turn on my snaps and snap from point to point, and from point to point, and from point to point, and etc., etc. And you can see this would be very tedious and very painful to do for all of my trusses. But if I, you know, for whatever reason, my professor is demanding it from me, or saying, oh, you know, all of your trusses need to be going in this direction for whatever reason, even though in reality I think you would have some members that have to shift to accommodate, you know, some of your loads as you're cantilevering out. You know, you wouldn't have necessarily your members all in one direction unless you have, you know, this is one big large cantilever, and then all your forces are being picked up as this thing is, you know, being pushed down that way. You know, then maybe you have all your things in this direction. But, you know, for us, we're not going to do the quick slice method for all of these. You know, I'm going to turn off that edit poly modifier, go back down to my surface, go back up to my subdivide, and just let it automatically do that calculation for me. I'm going to hit Shift S on my keyboard to show my splines, S to turn off my snaps. Once I have that in here, the next thing I'm going to do is come and drop on a lattice modifier. When I put that lattice modifier on there, it automatically takes all of those lines and gives it some thickness. Now I want to come in here and make this like, oh, I don't know, like, well, not 8 feet, 8 inches. And you know, I could apply it to just the points or just the struts. I'm going to do both of them, and I want to come in here and do like a foot for those guys. And I'm just going to leave this very crude. I'll increase my segment here to like 2 or maybe 3 or 4, just to refine it a little bit. And I'll increase my side to we'll say 12, just so it's a little more refined, a little more, you know. And I could always come in here later, you know, and like I said at the very end, if I really wanted to, you know, put a mesh smooth to just kind of clear it up. Your other option that you can do, if I actually get rid of my mesh smooth that I just put on there, you know, I could always come in and put an edit poly on top of it, and you know, do my whole smoothing groups up here. Or if I go into my element sublayer, I select everything on here, I come down to where my smoothing groups are, make sure everything cleared out, and I'll hit auto smooth, and then come up and get out of my modifier. So really I don't have any mesh. It's still that really rough geometry. It's not adding anything to my scene, but at the same time, you know, it's much more refined, much cleaner than it was before. If I take that head poly off, you can see how all of a sudden it becomes much more jagged. But for right now, we're just going to leave it here kind of rough and crude like that. And the last thing that I want to do, and what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to right click, go into configure modifier sets, because I'm going to be doing this a lot. Go down to symmetry, and I'm just going to drop it over my FFD box there and click OK. And then what I want to do is just add a symmetry modifier and add it in the Y direction. So that is now my truss that I have built very quickly and just kind of easily. And it's like, all right, well, I got one done, you know, congratulations, but I have a lot more to do here. And you're saying, well, you know, crap, I gotta go in here and do all this same stack to, you know, this guy and then this guy. Well, you know, again, I showed you before, we can come in here and just select all of these and copy. So I just selected the top one, I held shift, I came down here, I right clicked, I did copy. When I select the next one, I'm going to right click and do paste, and then right click and do paste. So basically what I'm doing is copying over that same modifier stack, and I'm quickly able to then generate these trusses. Even though each one of these is different in nature, you know, I can come in here and very easily build my trusses based off of, you know, based off my spline work here that I've broken out and kind of adjusted my center to. And as I'm doing this, you know, it's saving me from going in there and having to drop all of those modifiers on there individually to these trusses. So I can kind of quickly go in here and do this in, you know, a few minutes versus maybe like an hour coming in here and trying to do all those different modifiers. And if I'm pulling from the modifier list every time, you know, then it would really take even longer. If I have my button set up, it might be a little bit quicker, but you know, I still have to go in and adjust all my values that I adjusted, give it the radius, you know, I give it the segments. So all of those values are being copied over so that they match exactly. Now the only reason why I didn't copy the symmetry, I'll show you here. If I come here and copy the symmetry, come over here and, oops, undo that move, come over here and click on paste. Now for my symmetry, you see it's still referencing this original geometry here. So it's like mirroring my, you know, stuff over there, which is not what I want at all. So that's kind of why I wanted to set up that button for my symmetry. So if I click symmetry here and click the Y, you know, I can quickly kind of come in there and hit symmetry, hit my Y, and you know, do this to all of my shapes. I don't know why it's like symmetry Y. Max is doing something weird. I like click on my shape and it like is automatically moving it over some arbitrary distance. So each time I'm like having to click. Once I select my shape, I have to hit undo because it's like moving it off some direction. I don't know why it's freaking out like that. And you know, I don't think I can do, I think I can try and select all of these and do a symmetry modifier on them, but you see it's doing it to all of them. So if I switch and I do it in the Y, you know, it's not quite that simple as just doing it. If I want something like that where I have trusses going that way and then trusses going that way, but then again, you know, it's also mirroring it around so that you know, it's symmetrical here and here. So if I had split my shape down to make it symmetrical, I could do something like that if I wanted like just half of a truss kind of facing that way, flaring out. But unfortunately, I can't do that. So I have to come in here to each one of these, do my symmetry modifier in the Y and select off of it, and then do my symmetry modifier in the Y and select off of it. So you know, having that button set up is really saving me a lot of time from going down into the drop down list, and copying these things over saved me a lot of time so that I didn't have to, you know, go in and do that same modifier stack for each one of these, but rather I could just very easily and quickly you know, sit there and kind of apply this stuff to my shape. So then really the only thing that I have to do individually is this last symmetry modifier, where I'm coming in, I'm applying the symmetry and kind of making sure it's in the right direction here for my shape. And so as I'm applying it, you know, I can quickly kind of get the results that I need. And you know, if I come in and look at my trusses now, select one of them, hit Z for zoom, you can see it's starting to resemble that original image that we had, where these trusses are kind of coming across in your view as you're looking out of your space. So you know, that's basically you know, what we're working with here for the trusses. And you know, kind of once I have all of these generated, I know how far I'm working off to the side here. I can just take them and move them into place. Now, you know, obviously before I go and do all these, if I'm not happy with the one that I'm building, you know, I could have gone in and gone back down to my editable spline, make sure show end result is on. I could grab this bottom chord on my spline sublevel, and I say, oh, you know, this isn't, you know, deep enough. I really need to exaggerate this truss. I really want it to be pretty deep. You know, so I can always make you know, trusses deeper, or you know, adjust things as I need to. I do warn you, if you try and move the chord that it's has the symmetry based on, you'll get some weird overlap. But I can come in and select like this one, for example, and if I need to nudge it, this way, it'll then kind of flare out and adjust as it needs to. So I'm gonna get out of there, get out of here, and what I want to do is then select all of these guys, and just for kind of sanity's sake, I'll go up to group them. I'll call these truss all as a group. So if I hit H on the keyboard to select that, you can see right there, truss all. Right click my X modifier here, and I'm going to move this over. I think it was 1,000 feet is what we had it. So, and you can see it's kind of over here lining up with my geometry. And what I can do is drop this down a little bit so it's not poking up through my surface, just a hair more. And it looks like, yeah, it looks like just because of kind of how beefy I've made my trusses, I've made it pretty beefy, and I didn't, I could come in and I guess clear out some of these endpoints if I say, oh, I guess I should really come down to here. So I'll go group, and I'm going to open that group up so I can work within it. So like this truss right here really is, I'd say, is not necessary at all. I could delete that off if I need to modify it. I could then come in here to this truss, and I say, I'm going to come down to my editable spline, show end result, come into my vertices here. I'll turn off show end result just so I can show you guys what I'm doing. I want to select these, and what I'm going to do is just kind of delete those off of there. Unselect my vertices, come back up to my Symmetry Modifier, and now you can see that's actually kind of fitting within my shell. So there might be a little bit of an adjustment like that as I come in here and kind of play around with this stuff and get it to line up. But you see it's based off of that, all based off of that original geometry and lining up with that fairly well. It's just in terms of maybe some overlap with my roof structure, I might have to adjust a little bit so that it's it's kind of lining up as I needed to. So again, I'd come in here to my vertices, and I would just kind of delete this off so it's not overlapping like that completely. So then I can just turn this off and turn my symmetry back on. And it might also be how I conform that surface down to this. So if I go and do unhide my surface here, when I bring this over 1,000 feet, and I'll change the color of it too, just so you guys can see it once I move it over. It looks like what I did in my my haste to kind of conform this. No, I mean not really. I was gonna say it seems like it it possibly did something goofy in my conform, since I did it very quickly and had my strength really cranked up, but it seems like it lines up very, very well. So really it's just the fact that these trusses are pretty beefy, and I have the Symmetry Modifier on that midpoint. Also what I did was I copied it over from this line down, and then my symmetry is modified here in the middle. So really I guess the proper way to do it would have been to base this off of your mid. This would have been your mid bottom chord. So then I really would have gone up and over, so that the midpoint is lining up with it, and then my geometry is pretty close to these 2 points, instead of having it shifted down, if that's kind of making sense. So rather than having this line, which is the geometry I used for reference, which you can see the red line passing right through here, technically that red line, these trusses should be shifted up, is essentially what I'm saying, so that this guy would actually line up with, if I lock that in, line up with it like that, and that's how I probably should have built it. But just for the sake of kind of getting it to line up a little bit, I'll go up to my group, make sure I close my group, which was here, and I'll just make sure my spacebar is locked here, down here, and I'm just going to move this up just so this guy lines up a little bit better. So now when I come into this view, I should be actually able to pull my trusses up a little bit more. So you see it's lining up pretty well, and it's like I said, I could come in here and continue kind of cleaning up some of these extra trusses that are sticking over. But I think for right now I'm going to stop it here. And the next thing we're going to pick up and do, we're going to do the kind of glass enclosure just very quickly, and we're also going to do some of those other main structures that you saw. If I go back to the images here and show you the interior, we're going to do some of these main trusses just coming down to these support points, or these main support columns that are angled here. So we're going to do a few of those, get those in place, and also get our glass curtain wall kind of in place, which is kind of slanting out here. So we're going to do those two things quickly here in the next video, just to kind of wrap this up. But I mean, for the most part, this is kind of done. I can right click here, do hide, grab this reference surface and also hide that. So this is kind of what I have going on right now. I have my roof structure with my beams in place, and if I need to, as a conceptual kind of form over my shape, I can kind of show this to who I need to, and show them what's going on with it, and easily kind of describe what's going on in my project. So I'm going to stop it here, and then we'll pick up building those last couple of support members and again that glass curtain wall very quickly.